There's been talk around the inner sphere for a while now that very popular YouTube film critic, Chris Stuckman, was doing a horror film called Shelby Oaks. Now, about 6 months or so ago, we talked about it a little bit on the show when somebody wrote in and asked me, "Hey, John, are you going to review Shelby Oaks?" To which I said, no, I'm not going to review Shelby Oaks. And the reason I explained, I'm not going to be reviewing Shelby Oaks whenever it comes out. Remember, this is like 6 months ago. I said it's because there's really no positive outcome from me reviewing Shelby Oaks. Because everybody knows I know Chris. Chris has been on several of my shows. He has been on a couple of my panels that I've done at Comic-Con. And most people know that I consider, on two opposite ends of the spectrum, I consider him and Jeremy Johns to be the best pure film critics on YouTube. Not necessarily the best film pundits, but the best film critics. Chris, much more analytical. Jeremy, much more experiential and visceral. But the two of them, I think, represent the best. So everybody knows I have a very high opinion of Chris. So I'm like, if I watch Shelby Oaks and review it, and I like it,
yeah,
no one's going to believe me.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody's just saying, "Oh, you're just saying that because you know Chris." Or you're just saying that because he's a YouTuber too, and you want it to look good for YouTubers, make him so. Like literally, if I came out and did a positive review for it, it wouldn't do anything because nobody would believe it. On the flip side, if I watched Shelby Oaks and decided for whatever reason that I didn't like it, well, then people are saying I'm just hating on Chris, or I'm just jealous of Chris. Well, of course I'm jealous of Chris. I made my first movie for $20,000. He made his for $2.3 million. There's a lot to be jealous about. I'm very envious of that. So really for me, there was no upside to me, and I couldn't be helpful to the movie by me doing a review. So I haven't done a review. Now, Shelby Oaks has now come out to mixed response. It's got about a 50% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, about a 52 or 53% the last I checked audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And here's the thing. There's a lot of people right now out there that I see in the interwebs celebrating the failure of Shelby Oaks. I do want to point out that the movie made about $2 million already. It's probably going to break even when it's all said and done. Maybe even a little bit better than that. But that's aside the point. There's some people out there celebrating, saying, blah, blah, blah. Chris, and still a lot of people who were very mad at Chris when he made that decision about a year ago. Remember that when he said, I'm not going to review movies anymore that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I remember at the time having this debate with somebody about it. I said, to me, that is the highest form of integrity. Because, my opinion, Rob, is if you're a filmmaker, you shouldn't be out there bashing other filmmakers. Let other people do that. Let pundits do that. Let critics do that. Let fans do that. My position has always been, if you're a filmmaker, you shouldn't be bashing on the work of other filmmakers. I find that classless. And as Stuckman himself was kind of stepping one foot into that world of being a filmmaker, I applauded the idea because, number one, it's still integrity. He's not going to review a movie and say it's good if he doesn't think it's good. He's just not going to review it. He was upfront about it. I thought he handled it with great integrity. Personally, myself, I think he handled it the right way. And I think it was the right decision for him to do that. If you want to become a filmmaker, just don't review movies you didn't like then. It's not your place to be out there, I don't think, to go bashing on other films. Anyway, so we get back to this whole Shelby Oaks thing, right? And I see a bunch of people out there kind of celebrating that maybe it's not getting the reception that I hope. Again, it still has better reception than some movies.
Sure.
So let's say that.
It's his first film.
Yeah, and it's his first film. And I wanted to throw this out there about Chris and the movie and what it's accomplished. Rob, I think the world is filled with anonymous cowards. The world is filled with anonymous cowards. People who safely sit in their little chair that they sit in every single day and criticize people. I'm not talking about evaluating a movie. You watch a movie, it was good, say it's great.
Yeah.
If you watch a movie, it's not good, say it's not good. I'm not talking about that. That's all fair. But celebrating in a lack of success, and there is some success here for Shelby Oaks. But what I'm saying is, Chris Stuckman has accomplished more, I believe, than 99% of people ever will.
He's also an author, a published author. He's written books.
He's written and stuff like that. And there's some people have heard me say this story before, but I want to share it here. A lot of people, you guys know I travel in church circles. One of my favorite stories, my absolute favorite story in all the Bible. All right? Put on your Sunday best, folks. Reverend John is about to speak.
Hallelujah.
Damn right. Listen, one of my favorite stories is this. And I find this is so true in life. There's this great story in the Gospels where one night Jesus tells his apostles, let's all get in a boat and go out on the water, right? Okay. Doesn't really say why they're going to get in the boat and go on the water. They just say, sure. Jesus says, let's get in the boat. When the Almighty comes to you, you don't ask him for his ID, Rob. Did you like that reference?
What does God need with a starship?
What? Did you like that reference? I thought you might. But so they go out on the water. Now, as the story goes, in the middle of the night, all the apostles fell asleep. In the middle of the night, the apostles wake up to a brutal storm going on. The waves are high, the water is rough, the rain is pelting them, and they notice that Jesus isn't in the boat. And they're all panicking and they're scared. They think they're going to drown. And then they look out and they see off in the distance a silhouette, and it's Jesus standing on the water. Now listen, you don't have to be a person of faith to appreciate the moral of this story, so just follow me here. So they look out on the water, and I'll get around to how this completely ties into Chris Stuckman. And I'm not saying Chris Stuckman is Jesus. So they look out and they see Jesus standing on the water. And they say, oh my God, it's Jesus. And Jesus says, I'm paraphrasing, hey, get out of the boat and walk on over to me. That's a tall ask.
He says that probably in Aramaic too.
Yeah, probably. It's a tall ask. Big ask. These guys are terrified. The storm is raging. The lightning is flashing. The waves are crashing. He says, get out of the boat and come walking over to me. And as the story goes, they were all cowards. They all stayed huddled in the boat, except one guy. Peter. Petros in the Greek. He decides, crap in his pants. All right. I mean, this is stupid, but you're Jesus, so okay. So as the story goes, Peter steps 1 foot out of the boat and he finds the water is holding up his weight. And then he takes another step and Peter is walking on the water. Now, then as the story goes, Peter became distracted. He became overwhelmed by his fear. He looked around, he saw the storm, he saw the waves, and he panicked and he sunk. And then Jesus grabbed him, pulled him out, pulled him in the boat. Now, in Christian circles, this story is looked at as a story of failure. That Peter lacked faith and he sunk and he got wet. Well, everybody was wet, but still he got soaked and he got embarrassed. Ha ha, you sunk. But here's the real moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen. As out of all the cowards cuddled safely in the anonymity and the safety of the boat, only one of them walked on water. Peter sunk, but he got out of the boat and he walked on water. And while everybody else tells the story about failure and embarrassment and blah, 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 guess what? At the end of all their days, only one of them could say, yeah, but I walked on water. Might have only been 1 or 2 steps, but I walked on water. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that Chris Stuckman has walked on water. He's walked on water. How many people sit around saying, I want to make a movie someday, but they never do anything about it? They just sit around thinking someday America's Got Talent is going to put him on their show, or they sit around and think maybe somebody will just come along and hand me an opportunity.
Especially today.
Especially
all
today.
the influences and
especially today.
I'm going to be famous.
Chris Stuckman, when he could have stayed huddled in the safety of his little YouTube channel where he was already safe and he was already successful, could have just very safely stayed in that little boat with everybody else and not tried anything. And I have an insane amount of respect for a guy who decided to take a risk, to roll the dice, to get out of the fucking boat. Don't hear that a lot in sermons. Chris is the one guy who got out of the boat. In a world of anonymous cowards who all just going to play it safe in life and then ridicule the people who tried getting out of the boat. And you know what? You know what? Okay, 50% Rotten Tomato, whatever. Maybe Chris sunk. Maybe he did. I don't know. We're too far away to know that for sure. But even if he did, he made a theatrically released movie.
Yes, he did.
And he took enormous personal risk to do it.
All the risk.
He took all the risk.
As a movie pundit or movie reviewer?
Exactly. His existing career he put at risk. Embarrassment he put at risk. Because him rolling the dice, whereas a lot of people get to take their risks in private, the world doesn't see it, Chris did it in front of tens of hundreds of million people.
Knowing he was going to be judged.
Exactly. Knowing he was going to be judged. So look, am I going to review Shelby Oaks? No, because there's no upside to it. Either way, whether I liked the movie or didn't like the movie, there's no reason for me to review the film because everybody knows my personal connection, even though it's very vague. I still think this. Whether you like Chris Stuckman or not, whether you like Shelby Oaks or not, tip your hat. Because Chris Stuckman got out of the boat when 11 out of 12 never have the guts to do it. And I will forever respect that a great deal. Anyway, Rob, as somebody who, like many people, we are movie fans, we're lifelong movie fans. You are somebody who's actually got to cross that threshold and make television and make movies. But, you know, I'm in whatever Shelby Oaks ends up doing, whether it makes money, loses a little bit of money. I think a lot of people should look at Chris Stuckman as an example and maybe take some inspiration from what he's doing. And I don't know, your take on this whole situation.
Well, what I think, okay, I've always used, I keep thinking about all the French movie critics who wrote for Cahiers du Cinéma, which is the French film magazine in the 50s. People like Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, I think Jules Dassin. I don't know if he did. And they became some of the greatest filmmakers we ever had in the mid-20th century. And I love seeing that you've got the brothers, the Philippot brothers, who made Talk to Me and Bring Her Back. They were making YouTube and TikTok content, and then they transitioned over to make feature films. Chris Stuckman did that. I've often said, John, that everybody in the world should try making a movie because there are many lessons you learn in the process of making a movie. And you're, first of all, you're conjuring something that doesn't exist. You're not even like getting lumber and putting stuff together. You're making an idea, you're giving an idea flesh, which is the hardest form of creation because you have nothing to look at. You have nothing to see in front of you. You just have an idea. Like Chris Stuckman took some inspiration from a movie called Lake Mungo. It's a favorite film of his. And you can see the inspiration in Shelby Oaks. And I think that anybody that conjures something from the ether, like you said, anybody that takes a step out of that boat, I mean, that's what life is. Most people don't ever get out of the boat.
No, they do not.
And especially if you're in the movie Apocalypse Now, you should never get out of the boat either. But the
nice reference.
The thing about this is that's what living is. And while you might not make a great film, but you learn something. You've learned invaluable lessons. There's so many different components to making movies. He had to write it. He had to face, James Cameron talks about the scariest thing is facing a blank page. He sits down, he doesn't know. He has an idea, but there's a blank page, fill that page. Chris Stuckman had to do that first. He had to fill a blank, and you've written a book.
Yeah.
You know, you've made movies, you've made The Anniversary, you've made documentaries. You know what it's like. You have to fill that blank page every single day. That is, how many people can't do that? And that's just the beginning of the process. And a lot of people give up. They can't even fill up the pages correctly. Chris Stuckman took it all the way through. Not only that, he crowdfunded it. And then because of that, he had Neon come on board. Mike Flanagan came on board. They saw enough in that film that they
gave him another $1 million.
Gave him more money to shoot more stuff and to get that kind of talent. They didn't just come on because he was a YouTuber. They came on because they saw value in what he'd done. And it's not even enough to make a movie. He got Neon to distribute it. I mean, you know how many movies that I've worked on that never got distribution? A lot. Not because of me. I just want to say that. But, I mean, he did it. He did it all the way through. So for him, victory after victory after victory after victory. And you know what? If it breaks even, how many studio movies didn't break even this year?
Oh, a few. There have been a number of them. By the way, I just want to kind of point this out. The award today for failing to get the point goes to one of our viewers by the name of Shifty Eyed Dog, who says, well, what about all the non-YouTuber directors whose films you trash? They made a movie too, but you don't seem to defend them because you're missing the point. Did you miss the part where I said it's not about the movie itself, whether it's good or bad? Like, you're going to watch movies and like them. You're going to watch movies and hate them. That's fine. I'm talking about respecting the fact that he even went out and did it. Now, listen, I haven't watched Shelby Oaks yet, simply because, like I said, there is no veracity to me reviewing it because people are going to dismiss my review, positive or negative, because of my proximity to Chris. So there's no value in that for anybody. But it's not about whether the movie's good or bad. The movie might be great. The movie might be terrible. If you hate Shelby Oaks, perfectly fine. That's perfectly, there's nothing wrong if you hate the movie. But what I'm saying is, what I'm kind of addressing is this kind of movement online to almost celebrate that Chris maybe didn't do as well as, you know, it didn't break out. The movie didn't open to $50 million or whatever. To me, I would say everybody who's celebrating that are all 11 cowards still sitting in a boat who've never done crap. And whether the movie is good or not, I think Chris Stuckman is due a pound of flesh of respect. For the fact that, because again, a lot of filmmakers too, Rob, like you kind of point out, it's fine, they want to make a movie, but even filmmakers getting started off to the general public are relatively anonymous. Chris Stuckman had to risk his successful career as a YouTube film critic. He's literally putting his career on the line to chase a dream, whereas most people are too scared to chase a dream. And again, I just think there's something there to be respected for that.
I 100%. I'm with you 100%.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, Shelby Oaks came out and, by the way, did something I'll never do. Released a movie that made a couple of $1 million at the box office. I'll probably never do that. Anyway.
Plus, he's got a movie in theaters now on Halloween itself.
Which is not something that Neon has traditionally done. So, guys, whatever you think about this whole thing, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.